Welcome Aquarius to your in-depth monthly forecast for March 2025. As we come into this month, the power and potency of the new moon, which occurred last month, is very much to the fore. Why is this? Well, it's because it occurred on the last day of last month. New moons have an influence of 4 weeks, but that was a new moon which squared off to Jupiter, the planet of hope, enthusiasm, optimism and good fortune in your 5th house. What makes that particularly significant is the 5th house is the sector of speculation and accumulation. So if you're someone who is up for a flutter, or there's some kind of new business idea that's inspiring you, your enthusiasm can certainly be maxed up as you enter this month. But there's also a shimmering conjunction between Mercury, Neptune and the North Node in your 2nd solar house of everyday money, and that does require a little bit of care. If you're someone who has a real interest in helping good causes, that's a lovely combination, and it may see you decide to volunteer, go on some kind of sponsored fundraiser, or perhaps give some money to a good cause. But Mercury's soon going to be switching. But first of all, we need to be mindful of Venus. Venus starts this month in the sign of Aries. Venus technically is debilitated in Aries. I personally like Venus in Aries. I feel that Venus in Aries gives us the encouragement to go for what we want and desire quickly. But the 3rd house is about how we articulate ideas, and it is going to be an extremely important part of your month's journey, because Venus goes retrograde on the 2nd, but Venus can be about money and it can be about values as much as relationships. But the 3rd house and Venus points towards things like internet dating, because the 3rd house is quick communication, and Venus, remember, particularly in Aries, goes for what it wants quickly. So it could see some Aquariuses swiping for fun. But Mercury, the planet of communication, moves to join up with Venus on the 3rd. Now, Mercury is really exciting for you in this part of your chart because it's immediately linking back to Pluto in your sign, having returned to Aquarius on the 19th of November for its 3rd visit. And that means that as Mercury steps forwards, if there's something you want to express to someone that you're very passionate about, you can do so with authority. Your ability to understand ideas in a very penetrative way is going to be strong because of Pluto applying to Mercury. Mercury is how we think, but it can also be how we analyse. But the 3rd house generally is quite a Gemini type influence, but your passion, along with your desire, Venus, but your communicational skills, a big part of Aquarius nature, very strong as this month begins. But if something's offered you financially just before these two start to connect, and they do come into an exact alliance on the 11th, just be sure that the clarity is not in any way muddled, because with Neptune and Mercury and the node initially together at the start of this month, what you're told about something financially might not be quite right, and because of the square from Jupiter to the new moon, something could be exaggerated. You need to make sure it's not your approach. But also, Jupiter forges a stunning link to Venus at the start of this month, and Jupiter in the 5th house is not just about life's pleasures or being a bit more daring or speculative. It can also be about social interaction. It can be about romance. And of course, Jupiter is the planet of fortune, and Venus the planet of fortune too. So they're also aligning brilliantly at the start of this month. So we could focus on Venus retrograde in a very negative way, and also the new moon in a negative way because of the square, and because Neptune can distort the clarity of a financial discussion. So just cutting through all of that, I feel your ability, particularly with Pluto's help, to cut through to what's really important, suggests that something very exciting can manifest itself for you in the first 10 days of this month. What's not to like? Well, it's just that your traditional ruler, Saturn, has been in your second house the last couple of years, and it hasn't been making life easy. You may have felt at times that other people have questioned your values. They may have questioned your sincerity, and you may have found that money coming into you was quite pinched. It hasn't necessarily been easy. But what Saturn does is makes us work very hard. And if you've really shown that industry and that application, it's possible by the 12th, as we have the Saturn Cazimi, that you'll be able to see the foundational basis of a lot of effort starting to really bear fruit. And that could be exciting. What's not to like? Well, it's just the lunar eclipse on the 14th, the second in the new series between the signs of Pisces and Virgo. This one is in Virgo. Suggests balance in the books between the ins and the outs, what you want as an individual, your everyday budget, the position of Saturn and the Sun, and your connections to others. If there is any controversy about any kind of deal, it could show up in the next 6 months, unfortunately, from that lunar eclipse. And also because Mercury goes retrograde on the 15th. So although Mercury, Venus and Jupiter all forge those magical interactions, Mercury retrograde suggests that there could be some rethinking to do. We know Mercury retrogrades can be tricky when it comes to travel, technology, ticketing, buying things online, misunderstandings, cross wires, all those classical Mercury retrograde areas. But of course, Mercury retrograde can also be an opportunity to look at something in a fresh way and learn from that. And in fact, by the 20th, as the Sun moves into Aries, we have the vernal equinox, the start of Cardinal Quadrant 1, and also the Western Tropical Astrological Calendar. It's the most important date of the whole year, but that links brilliantly to Venus, despite its retrograde, in a conjunction, and they're both linking back to Pluto in your sign, which reaches a peak on the 23rd. So that can be an excellent moment for you, because when Venus and Pluto are working well and collaborating, but particularly the Sun and Pluto, we get transformation. So some kind of transformation can be positive for you. But ironically, on the 27th, Venus in its retrograde steps backwards into Pisces. Now, Venus loves being in Pisces, it's exalted, and Venus loves being in the second house. That's its more Taurian energy. And that could bring, ironically, in the retrograde, some money to you. Even though retrogrades usually are seen as being when things slow down. Also, the solar eclipse, the last of a series in Aries and Libra, this one Aries, on the 29th, is very close to the shimmering energies of Neptune. The part of your nature that can be extremely idealistic suggests that your conversation or your viewpoint can have huge impact on people over the following 6 months. Also, Mars, which of course went through the big retrograde from the 6th of December through to the 24th of February, but latterly from the 6th of January in your 6th house of practicalities, that's forging a stunning link with Uranus. Uranus has been making your home and emotional and family life really quite challenging, I feel, over the last few years. But you could see a way that you can break out and set up a new paradigm, which may require some kind of reorganization, but it could see you actually liberating yourself from something that isn't working. Now, one way you could do that, I feel, because Uranus appreciates space, as you well know, it's your co-ruler, is actually create more physical room by getting rid of things that no longer serve your greater good. Now, if you think about creating a minimalist approach, that would be a great way to work with that energy, because it frees you up to actually express what's really important to you, which is ideas. The most idealistic part of your nature is boosted hugely by that unique solar eclipse. Now, ironically, Mercury then returns back into Pisces. You could still find yourself talking about money, a deal of some kind, and it could still be beneficial, but it may require some flexing. And then Neptune steps forward, so combining with Mercury, just like it did at the start of the month, but moves forwards to align with Aries, the position of Aries, for the first time in 163 years. So huge for the next just under 8 months to the 10th of December. And that inspirational part of your nature, because Neptune links back to Pluto at this stage, wonderful stuff. So I feel that if you're someone who has a purpose in life that is beyond the practical realm, whether it is your family, your kids, your interests, your football team, your rugby team, your hockey team, whatever it is that really makes you feel animated, whether it's your political interests, whether it's your community interactions, whether it is to do with a blog you publish, whether it's a business that you have, whatever inspires you can inspire you hugely this month, but it may require you in some ways to rethink some elements of that, but hopefully it is going to sort out something this month that has been a challenge for the last couple of years, which is your finances. But I feel that things can be a little fluid, just bear that in mind. But also, someone or something that has been discussed in the past could be coming back into your realm, and it could come back in a positive way. So we can think about Venus and Mercury retrogrades as being challenging, and they can be, but they can bring opportunities. But that new moon, which cascades into the start of this month, but most of all, I feel the energy that's manifesting in Aries, but linking back to Pluto in your sign, gives you an exciting portent into future possibilities that has proved to be rather elusive over the last few years, of Saturn in your second house, Uranus in the fourth, but most of all, for many years, Pluto, for the most part, being in the very bruising psychological 12th house. If you've yet to check out my new website, please go to www.patrickarundell.com. You can grab yourself my special offer of your combination reports, of your life roadmap report, the most important document anyone could ever read, that helps us to understand the patterns that are played out in our existence so far, but also your 12 months transit report as well, and there's 30% off. Each of these is totally unique to the person it's produced for. If you don't know your time, you can have my solar option. If you prefer to have whole sign, you can choose that. Or if you'd like to check out your draconic possibilities, your soul chart, you can also get any of those 30% off too. Please see the link below for more.